So we have entitled this presentation this afternoon at COP29 under the name Mobilizing Finance for Adaptation Actions in Nature-Based Solutions. And that is a mouthful. And I was thinking about the session that we're presiding over today. And I thought, wouldn't something more appropriate fall along the lines of a favorite expression that came out of Africa called shaking the tree? How many of you are familiar with the term shaking the tree? We use it in many of the presentations that we do at New Day Impact Investing, not just because it's a very famous song that was written by Peter Gabriel and also Youssou N'Dour's poetic piece that was written a number of years ago, but there couldn't be a better metaphor for what we're trying to accomplish here at COP and here in this session this morning. My name is Doug Heskey. I am the co-founder of New Day Impact Investing that is based out of New York City today. In a metaphorical sense, shaking the tree means to do something that causes a reaction or a change, often to bring about truth or to reveal hidden elements. It's like stirring things up to see what will happen. And even in a biblical sense, when you shake the tree, God is trying to wake you up. So this incredible team of impact leaders is going to talk a bit about that today. We cannot, as a society, walk into the future like zombies. And I, even being in this incredibly distinguished group of people and dignitaries that are here at COP, am feeling anxious. I am feeling anxious because we are continuing to witness the horrible things that are going on in the Middle East, in Ukraine, in Burkina Faso, and other war-torn areas around the world. I am anxious because we as Westerners have sat on this decadent pedestal of infallibility for a very long time, and now all of a sudden, we are waking up to the fact that we are as vulnerable as any other empire of the past. Certainly post the elections in the United States over the last couple of weeks. I am anxious because we are facing a number of existential threats. I know they're coming, and you know they're coming. Species extinction, rising sea levels, global warming, poverty, exploding population. We need to be addressing these items and getting more people engaged in taking action. I am anxious because I don't like the narrative that we're living in here today. And this is what we're trying to address. But I am also incredibly hopeful. I am incredibly hopeful because there are hundreds of millions of younger people around the world that are developing their own blueprints for change and engaging in very, very different ways, even more than just deploying capital behind these important initiatives. And while we as an organization help bridge the chasm between awareness and action, which we all must be doing, the real truth of the matter is that it's you who are engaged out in the field doing this work every day that give us real hope. And we imagine this world, a world where people live without the fear of threat and violence, a world where universal literacy can be obtained, a world where physical, mental, and social well-being are the norms, a world where safe drinking water and clean oceans and clean air are things that are the expectation. Our work at New Day Impact is about doing something about it. And it is for this reason that we are here today. So what's the answer? The answer is you. And our story at our organization began with this question around what would happen if we were able to collectivize and unleash this exciting vigor that younger people have today to change the world. This is the calling of our time. This is the dinner conversation that goes on at every table around the world right now. We are joined this morning by an incredibly distinguished group of impact leaders that are doing incredibly powerful work in their local communities around nature-based solutions. And we're going to discover some of this today. Before we do this, I'd like to share a bit about the work that we're doing as an organization at New Day, and to set the stage, if we can move forward with the slides. I think we're looking for the New Day slides to start with. There we go. So it was 8 years ago that we as an organization decided to form an organization that was addressing what were foundationally for us two problems in the impact investment business. The first was that individuals, and in some circumstances, even institutions, that didn't have the same level of financial affluence or influence to align those things that they cared most about with their financial and investment strategy. The second was addressing what is very much a problem still today, and that is the greenwashing, social washing, blue washing, whatever you want to call it, that goes on in both the corporate world around the world and in the investment business. So who are we at New Day Impact? We're a leading provider of institutional and retail impact investment solutions focused exclusively on environmental, sustainable, socially responsible issuers and issuances with strong governance practices. We are providing end-to-end solutions around three primary pillars or approaches to impact that we brand under getting informed, getting involved, and getting invested. All three really important issues relative to engagement. All of the work that we're doing as an organization today is tied to our impact partners and many of the people that you have that will speak to you today. And our view around market-based solutions combine what is charitable capital currently in the United States, more than $500 billion given every year. Investment capital, both public capital, which amounts to more than $165 trillion today in the global financial markets, and a private investment market, again, critically important, that represents about 10% of that. But none of that makes any difference unless we as a society change behavior. And that's just not consumer or individual behavior, but it's institutional behavior as well. So when you hear from these individuals today, many of our partners, you're going to hear about that engagement and the work that they're doing, that they and only they can do from a grassroots level in driving impact, both on a global scale and in the local communities as well. And these organizations include an organization that Carter Henney and I are both part of called Blue Community Consortium, which is doing coastal restoration and resilience work around the United States. It is the Cousteau family, who we do a lot of work with on the ocean health side, and their organization, Earth Echo International. It is the Georgie Bedell Foundation, Georgie being a very successful international model that took all of that capital as a successful model and created a foundation serving her home country of Burkina Faso around water well repair, women's empowerment, and job opportunities. And of course, Jane Goodall Institute as well, and the work that they're doing on the wildlife conservation and biodiversity side. Can we advance to the next slide? There we go. I'm just going to spend a quick minute talking about the coastal restoration work that we do because it is tied to some of the investment portfolios that we run on the ocean's health side. There are two primary areas that we focus on, one in association with Reef Gen and the work that that Carter Henney is pursuing at Sea and Shoreline. Coastal restoration and resilience. We are about to launch a pilot program in Florida that we're hoping will expand into international communities that is tied back to our ocean health portfolio. We are taking a percentage of our revenues as an organization on that ocean health portfolio and driving those revenues back into the program. That program is also being funded by Cisco Foundation. The second is a program called Krill Free Forever. One of the most important carbon sinks on the planet today is the Southern Ocean, that tiny little crustacean, which is absorbing enormous amounts of CO2. And we're working with a group of organizations to protect krill and make sure that they are over-harvested or overfished for the purposes of consumption by human beings of krill-based nutraceuticals, but also being used in aquaculture feed and livestock feed. Can we advance to the next slide, please? Our partner on the coastal restoration side is Carter Henney at Sea and Shoreline, who we're going to hear from. Also, an organization that is based in the San Francisco Bay Area that has developed a technological solution to do auto seagrass plantings as well. And we'd be happy to talk to you more about that as well. Next slide, please. That technology is also combating what is a major problem on the west coast of the United States relative to an invasive species called the purple urchin. Thank you. The Reef Gen technology is going out and basically eliminating purple urchins so that kelp can naturally regrow in that community. So we can't get this done alone. That the $165 trillion that's allocated into the investment markets every year, a mere fraction of that is going towards the blue ocean economy and blue finance. So both of these programs have been funded by major foundations. We are looking for additional investors coming in both the ocean health portfolios, but also other foundations to contribute to the programs that we're driving here for coastal restoration and resilience work in the, especially the Antarctic Southern Ocean right now as well. So we are largely an investor in public securities. And the reason that we started in the public security space was simply that given the size of that market, we cannot drain the sink fast enough if there are organizations, corporate organizations out there that continue to fill up the sink with their bad behavior. We understand that merely investing in public securities doesn't necessarily drive impact unless you're using your voice, your shareholder voice, to advocate for change, which is exactly what we do through our impact partners like the Cousteau family, Georgie Bedell, and Jane Goodall. So we like to say capital plus advocacy equals impact. A big thing that's changing in our organization on a go-forward basis is a very important platform that we are rolling out as we speak called New Day Impact One. New Day Impact One gives virtually anyone anywhere in the world an opportunity to get educated, to get involved, and get invested, deploy capital around nature-based solutions and other aspects of our investment work that we're doing. That platform that's currently available in the iOS store, you can find under New Day Informed. It is impact news, community events. Many of our partners are furnishing information that is supplied in that platform. It really is designed to bring about a higher level of education and awareness for all of this important impact work that we're doing today. So this is just an example of some of the things that, from a content perspective, that are available in the platform. So, and then you can download the platform through the icon here as well. So it is my pleasure to introduce each one of our panelists that are doing truly extraordinary work out in the world. We're going to break this session up really in two areas, talking about the localization of impact, which Golam and Carter are going to speak around their organizations first at BRAC and then at Sea and Shoreline. And then we're going to have a group of people talk about nature-based solutions and their work doing as well. So what I'd love to do, Golam, is pass things off to you for an introduction, and then Carter, we'll go to you next.
Yeah. Thank you, moderator. This is a great opportunity for BRAC to share some of our solutions, adaptation actions in Bangladesh and beyond Bangladesh. Can you just open the BRAC presentation, please? Well, BRAC has a very lived experience on development, adaptation, disaster risk management, humanitarian assistance, to some extent mitigation, and loss and damages. Well, this organization is the largest organization, a non-government organization in the world in a row of last 5-6 years. And it was born in Bangladesh in the year of following the catastrophe of Bhola cyclone that killed 300 people within the country. And if we look at the adaptation effort in Bangladesh, adaptation works much better in the country, but it can be better financed and better implemented. But what is the message that we want to share with you here in this international arena? BRAC is developing pilots, solutions, and also models on adaptation actions and other development climate resilient options. Let me share, 3 solutions that we are working in the country now in different vulnerable ecosystems: drought-prone ecosystems, flood-prone ecosystems, coastal zone, Howard zone, and hilly areas. But I took only 3 solutions based on our understanding and with the time constraints. Let me share first the Climate Bridge Fund. Based on the long experiences, BRAC realized that a good number of people are experiencing climate change extreme impacts in terms of rural livelihood, accessing the water supply sanitations, and then the other related problems in the rural areas, and they migrate to the nearest destination and the capital city. And BRAC realized that we should do something to address the problems of the climate migrants and the displaced population. And immediately they started discussion with the government of Germany, and then government of Germany agreed to support about 11.735 million euro to address the problem of this displaced population in 5 selected urban areas. And these 5 selected urban areas are from some of the areas from coastal zone, which is extremely vulnerable to the climate change, and some of the areas from drought-prone zone, and some of the areas from flood-prone zone. So 5 selected areas, they have selected. And the idea is to just 2 objectives: reduce the climate change impact and vulnerability of this displaced population, and increase the capacity of the local organization to deal with the potential climate change impacts in future. Because we talk about the climate scenarios, different scenarios, and so that this local organization have the capacity to deal with the much more intense climate change impacts in future. If you look what we have done in last 5 years, we started our journey in 2019, and our official journey started, in fact, selection of the projects, small scale adaptation projects to implement in those vulnerable urban areas. And then we were able to reach 220,000 people, vulnerable people in 5 selected urban areas. And how you can see here that 4 common areas of intervention. The first one is livelihood. We could reach more than 100,000 people, especially the women. You can see 65,000 women, more than 65,000 women were reached through different type of livelihood intervention from BRAC and non-BRAC NGOs. We have around 16 partners in the different locations. And climate resilient water supply, sanitation, and hygiene practices. We also raised walkways, drainage system, housing, shelter, so that people can move from the low-income communities to their workplace and other areas, and easily can use those small raised walkways to their work, from the slums. And also on the health sectors, as you know, that one of the key messages that we have from the 6th IPCC assessment report, one of the priority sector, in fact, third priority sector is the health, because the climate sensitive diseases are really affecting the different countries in the world. And in Bangladesh, currently, we are experiencing dengue outbreak. Dengue outbreak went up to 317,000 incidences in 2023, which was only 28,000 in 2021. So you can imagine how these are affecting the people of the country. So BRAC and some other NGOs, initiated health program so that the people, this climate sensitive diseases can be prevented. Let me just share with you just one learning. I strongly believe that this is not only in Bangladesh, in many countries, especially in South Asia, in these low-income communities, in the slum areas, we often design the project to address one sector of intervention, one sector of problems. But if you define the people in rural areas and people in the urban areas, the settings are completely different. In the rural areas, people have at least a home, and they have a small piece of land. But when they migrate to the urban areas, urban destination, it doesn't matter whether it is coastal city. It doesn't matter whether it is capital city. It doesn't matter whether it is a drought-prone city. When they arrive in the urban areas in Bangladesh, India, Nepal, anywhere, they don't have anything. They just come and they just need a livelihood option. They need a housing support. They need a wash support. So everything that need. So based on the 3 years of experiences, we learned that integrated approach, identifying the most priority sector, addressing climate change adaptation is the priority. So from 2023, BRAC decided that within the BRAC and also outside the BRAC, the NGOs must adopt integrated approach so that they can address the real problems of climate change impacts and advance the adaptation efforts and resilience effort. Let me just share, solution 2. BRAC, established a fantastic, solution, which we call adaptation clinic. Normally what we do when we are sick, we go to the hospitals, but BRAC realized that the farmers do not have any hospital. So we need to take the hospitals to the farmers so that they can actually adapt to the climate crisis in their own places. Okay, the farmers need some support. So we have this adaptation clinic with 4 pillars. Food security, target is the food security. And second one is the technological innovation, to advance the adaptation and mitigation actions, and empowering with social protection and financial inclusion. What is the target? You look at the left and the bullet points on the left image. So climate adaptive technologies, we provide the BRAC, relevant program. We have the climate change program, we have the agriculture program, we have the microcredit program. Jointly, they offer the climate tolerant varieties to the farmers. And that's not the end of the game. They provide the varieties that they train the how to cultivate these new varieties and different inputs, and so that they can get the targeted outputs from these varieties. And you can see the advisory support, referral for loans, crop insurance, market linkages, and also provide the weather and climate related information so that they can integrate in their own plans. And of course, the capacity building is extremely important for the farmers and farming households. So this is the second solution. And the third solution and the last solution that I want to talk about is the afforestation. And BRAC realized that we should do our own thematic area and own language, and which is called Amarbon. Amarbon is my forest. And this is a kind of social forestry criteria, and they created individual forest. These Amarbons already covered 57 acre. If you convert it to hectare, it's 23.13 hectares. And we have 300, Amar bonds in the entire Bangladesh. And in addition to that, we have already created 54.5 acres of mangrove plantation in a newly acclaimed lands of, Mirir Sharai, which is the southeast zone of the country. So these are some of the solutions that we have created within BRAC umbrella, and we are trying to advance both adaptation, mitigation, and loss and damage. Thank you so much, moderator. I stop here.
Dr. Rabbani, thank you very much. The work that goes on in Bangladesh is, on behalf of BRAC, is incredibly powerful. 80,000 strong or so. Congratulations on your work. Couldn't be anything more important right now, certainly in that area. So I'd like to ask Ruchi Chowdhury to go next and to talk about her efforts associated with the Climate Action Network for Southeast Asia.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ruchi from Climate Action Network South Asia. And just to tell you a little about Climate Action Network South Asia, it is a network of organizations, which it's more than 250 across South Asia. And we very rigorously follow this whole negotiation process in the UNFCCC space, trying to build synergies between the national level asks and how those translate into the discussions, the voices coming from the South to these global spaces. My topic will cover more on policy and practices from South Asia in particular. Thanks to my fellow panelists for setting the stage. And just as a startup, nature-based solutions, as we have been talking, these are strategies, these are simple ecosystem mechanisms that we use for water security purpose to save our ecosystem and talk more on the terms of biodiversity. Nature-based solutions have always been part and integrated into the the natural life of the South Asians. It's not something which is new. We have so many tribals, so many indigenous communities, which has always been very close to their own forests, their reservoirs, their natural resources. Tapping into those knowledges is where we are talking about nature-based solutions more in a formalized manner, while it is already there in practice. The only problem that we see is that it's not scaled up. The learnings from one community probably are not going very strategically into another community, which can learn from the existing experiences of the people, how they have saved their own ecosystems. Just touching upon some of the benefits, next slide, please, of the nature-based solutions. Why do we need it? One, okay, I need to operate it. Next. All right. So, yes. So what are the key benefits? One, it definitely helps for climate change adaptations and disaster risk reductions. It has its own benefits on the human health, because when we are reserving our nature, when we are reserving our own ecosystem, we have better quality air, we have better quality of soil, we have better quality of the food products that we have. We are talking about food security system and ensuring that there is sufficient food for the people, which is quality inclusive, which is less pesticide, which has less chemicals, but is more organic in nature. From the water security purpose and also from climate change mitigation point of view, nature-based solution really provides solutions. So because there will be less of disasters, as we can expect in the long run, and also there will be less of hazards, and security for the people will be much better ensured. Coming to the policy perspective, why do we need policies for these nature-based solutions to be scaled up? One, for enabling institutional support funding. Sorry, sometimes hands and mind doesn't work together. Okay, so it's for enabling institutional support and some funding. When we are talking about scalable models, like I'm telling you, there are very good work programs which are happening. So many, practices shared by Golam bhai. what is happening in Bangladesh. Similarly, there are so many water restoration, wetland management, afforestation, so many things happening within India, Nepal, Pakistan, anywhere you go. But still, why are we not able to, help our climate? Why are we still sitting here in the COP, one after the other, talking about climate change and global warming? Because yes, nature-based solutions are there, policies are there, but how much we are able to really integrate those solutions into practices and scale them up for a larger benefit? That is not happening. It is really getting very constrained in one area where it may be working, but because of sometimes insufficiency of scaling in terms of resources, how that one reservoir can be taken a practice to another one, or in terms of even skill set, learning within various communities. Those cross learning is still not happening. That's why mainstreaming is not happening, and that is why the coordinated efforts on nature-based solution projects is somewhere failing. Moving towards cross-sectoral impacts, in my previous slide, I already shared, when we are talking about this whole nature-based solutions in a policy framework, what Golam Bhai also said about integrated approach, it's a necessity. We should be talking about forestry. We should be talking about health, water, food security as a whole. Whenever we are talking about any practices within the societal setup. Now, the regional policy context, there are national policies available, but also sitting here, there are regional policy. Paris agreements Paris agreements talks about the nationally determined contributions, and there is a strong move towards, integrating nature-based solution into the ambitions to see the raised ambitions. We also have this Convention of Biodiversity, and COP 2016 does talk about there can't be any climate action without we are looking at the forestry, without we are looking at major source of carbon sinks, which are our forests, saving our nature, saving our main carbon sinks, whether through okay, let me just move on to the next. Yeah. So like sharing, in the international cooperation, we after the regional policies, we also have every country within South Asia having their own national policies. But again, these national policies though national, but they are not showing the national landscape. It's not happening everywhere. There are different terrains. There are hilly, there are mountainous, there are coastal. But these policies are, again, if you see India's green climate change mission, it's about reforestation. But again, in a particular area, not scaled up on the situations required in the entire country. So what are the various models that can be promoted? Bangladesh has its own Bangladesh Delta Plan. We have Pakistan talking about 10 billion tree tsunami programs. So seeing nationally, if you see any country, it's Pakistan, and then we have, all right, I think there's, okay. So after these all national policies, which are there, but still not scaled up, we have some very good examples which already been talked about in terms of mangrove restoration policies for Sundarbans. There is a, you can say, international cooperation to see, because Sundarbans, it's a ecosystem which expands both in Bangladesh and India. Just talking in India about India Sundarban and in Bangladesh about Bangladesh Sundarban will not really provide the ecosystem support that is required to really support the overall impacts within the Sundarbans on the interventions. Therefore, that cooperation between India and Bangladesh is there, where the government is taking initiatives. Within Nepal, community forestry policy framework is also available as a nature-based solution. And we have in India the green urban spaces, which I earlier talked about. Now, what are these policy instruments which really support the regulatory mechanisms, protected regulations, and environmental impact assessment? This is something which is a gap that we see in policies. What I was talking about, that there are good models available, but still there are gaps in those assessments, how much they are able to provide support. It is a known fact that nature-based solutions provide solutions, but how is it going to provide a larger scalable solution is still because those assessments are not there. Incentive mechanism, subsidies for nature-based activities, payment for ecosystem services. Now, wherever afforestation, like I'm talking about indigenous communities, I'm talking about tribals, I'm talking about rural areas where people are contributing towards their own natural resource management. But it's more from personal self. This is our area and we should support it. There is no policy incentivization of such support which can provide escalation of such models to a next level. So probably one of the things which could be a solution to see that how government can also incentivize some such models which are there on the ground. Funding mechanisms are available. There is public funding, there is a Green Climate Fund, there are public-private partnerships, but when these funds actually are implemented on the ground, there is a lot of work done exclusively by women's group. So transformation of that into a model is again something which becomes a problem because it just ends up as a set of activities done by women, done by groups, but it does not the moment the project ends, the intervention ends. So how do we make it scalable? How do we make it going on even without the project ends? How do we really integrate into the life cycle approach? So integrated planning approach I've already touched upon. Now, these are the challenges in our policy implementation, the policy gaps, insufficient legal frameworks, or limited enforcement. The governance system may be weak. The cross-sectoral coordination, the soiled approaches between environment, agriculture, and urban planning. There is a very sectoral divide. So how do we really make a integrated approach towards nature-based solutions and implementation further? And socioeconomic barriers in terms of community participation and equity issues. So what are the opportunities? And probably this is my last slide. Strengthening regional cooperation. There is already some regional cross-border cooperations happening for scaling up nature-based solutions. But how can these be strengthened? How can cross-border support be firmed up and more such policies initiated? Already there is a large crisis in the Himalayan region, which requires SARC's intervention because there's a huge water security issues in the whole Himalayan basin. How Nepal, Bhutan, India, Bangladesh all come together because that river is not catering to one country. So unless the countries come together, no support will be there to save that ecosystem. Mainstreaming traditional knowledges. There are lots of indigenous communities, good practices, not as projects, but how do we tap into those and make them livable? And scaling up and accessing climate finance. This whole COP is about climate finance for multiple things. I think climate finance to look and to scale up these models, which are just working in pockets, will also be an important thing. And the recommendations would be the holistic and inclusive approaches, the legal reforms which are required, capacity building in terms of learning and knowledge sharing of various models between not just communities culturally as well as internationally, and some monitoring and evaluation to see how the particular practice has really worked and how can it be scaled up. My end concluding lines would be, we need to really highlight how effective policies and practices can unlock the potential of nature-based solutions to address socioeconomic challenges in South Asia. And our call would be to encourage more of regional cooperation, innovations, and stronger policy commitments. Thank you.
Ruchi, thank you very much. And I'd like to come back to the the catalyst for engagement when we have some time at the end of the session here as well. So I'd like to turn to Carter Henry. So Carter is the founder of an organization by the name of Sea and Shoreline based out of Florida, doing incredibly important work around coastal restoration. Carter, there is a lot of application in the work that you're doing in Southeast Asia as well. But would you share with our group the work of Sea and Shoreline, why this is so important right now, and the intersection with what's going elsewhere around the world around coastal restoration?
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, esteemed panel. Thank you for being in attendance today. It is really, truly an honor to present with both the private finance side, the world's largest NGO, the world's largest communicator of social media, and some of the experts in nature-based solutions throughout the world. So what I want to talk a little bit about is preparing for the storm that's about to come, that's already here. I am from a state in Florida called Florida in the United States. We've had 3 major hurricanes in the past 14 months, 5 hurricanes total in the past 14 months, and there's another storm potentially brewing on the way. So we've been talking about climate change and sea level warming. We've been getting the jabs. Now we're about to get the right hook. So what I want to talk about is a little bit about some of the solutions that we found to be effective at both becoming a more resilient society in our coastal and disadvantaged communities, but also how to garner public support to bring in public-private partnerships. So traditionally, there was a bad thought that the only way to protect the shoreline was to put in a bulkhead, drop in a bunch of sheet pile and call it a day. Well, in fact, it doesn't really scale, both from a cost perspective, from a size perspective, but also from a capability perspective. Natural infrastructure works. Mother Nature knows how to take care of herself. She just got to have the tools to do so. I think I'd be preaching to the choir here to talk to a bunch of nature-based solutionists to talk about how coral, seagrasses, and submerged aquatic vegetation coupled with mangrove and other coastal marshes are the front line of defense that provide for our communities. They provide recreational, economic opportunities. They provide stability through an insurance market to stabilize property values. They provide commercial seafood. 90% of all commercially derived seafood is dependent on a seagrass meadow at some point in its life cycle. So they're incredibly important, not just for the coastal communities, but for the larger economies and ecosystems at large. So what am I talking about when we talk about nature-based solutions? These are some of the nature-based solutions that we've used in the past to create jobs, increase water clarity, quantity, and improve fisheries. We, as a civilization, are dealing with a lot of sins of our past that we did not know the cumulative effects and how they trickled downstream. A lot of times, in order to get a ecosystem, a water body, back into shape, it takes direct intervention. That direct intervention needs person power from the NGO perspective, and it also needs private sector engagement. And those are folks that, for environmental dredging, for seagrass restoration, for our clam and oyster placements, those are jobs that commercial divers that we hire that would otherwise be working on an oil rig, would otherwise be working on a tractor to plow more fields for more housing in areas that they don't need to be. These are real world jobs creating revenue back into these systems. We do a lot of natural storm water filtration. The moniker, the ridge to the reef, is a real thing because it's a real thing. If we continue to degrade our water quality through poor stormwater filtration policies, it creates human health effects that you've already spoke to, but it also creates these long-term ecosystem effects. And above the water line, how do we become better prepared? Oyster reef placement. There's some areas around the world that water quality does not support oyster reefs. I've seen clams, I've seen conch shells being used to create offshore breakwaters, living shorelines, whether that's salt marsh, mangroves, placing native stone to keep scouring is a good solution that we've seen. We're really excited about prefabricated breakwaters. The advantage of precast breakwaters is that often when using stone, granite, or armoring stone, as you go up in height, the cost goes up in cube because you have to have that much more material as opposed to hollow breakwaters. So if you're not tracking some of the new technologies with prefab breakwaters, I would highly encourage you to do so. And this is my main point. My only real point is how to have a nature-based solution. Where do you start from an idea? A community, an indigenous tribe, the native folks know there is a problem. They see it. They see their fisheries going down. They see their water quality going down. They see urban runoff increasing. They see human health impacts. In the case of the Indian River Lagoon, where I'm from, we're seeing lesions on dolphins, manatees, and sea turtles from so much toxic pollutants in the water quality. This model is simple, and it oversimplifies it. But I think sometimes as practitioners, we overcomplicate the problems. You start with a problem. You get an engaged community around that problem. You start to work on that problem, whatever that case may be. And as you garner support, document what is going on. Create the scientific validation to create new partners. And when you see those benefits get realized, look for increased collaboration. Our work, if we are not expanding, the collective us, if we're not expanding what we're doing, we're losing. The status quo cannot go on any longer. If we are not partnering and increasing our collaborations with multiple stakeholder groups that may not otherwise look aligned in the beginning, that is a key component to having a scalable project. With increased collaboration, with benefits already realized, now is the time to galvanize and look for large-scale funding for large-scale nature-based solutions to solve large-scale problems. And I'll give you a couple examples. This is a nature-based solution that was done with little money, planting submerged aquatic vegetation in stormwater canals. It was a $30,000 US dollar project, yet it provided the same water quality benefits as a $5 million new stormwater treatment area. The problem why they had not done it before is they didn't have, the community did not have the voice to work with the county engineers to show a different way. It did not fit in the mold, yet it did fit into a nature-based solution that increased water clarity and quantity to help treat those affected dolphins, manatees, and sea turtles with lesions that I just described. This is being rolled out through multiple counties on the east coast of Florida. This is one of a flagship project that I've been working on for the past decade. It's an incredible testament to where a community saw their spring. It's the largest spring-dependent estuary in the world. It's home to a large population of overwintering manatees. Over time, because of bad practices with nutrient runoff, the water quality went from gin clear springs water to mucky algae dominated state. With dredging, replanting, and maintenance of the water body, that $40 million investment is generating $2 billion in economic return for the community of Citrus County. Those jobs that we originally had folks diving, planting, growing seagrass, planting seagrasses, maintaining those seagrasses, those crew, those team members, those men and women are now back into that community, creating new jobs with ecotourism. It went from a manatee viewing area that was only available for 3 months of the year, is now available year round. It's some of the best weight manatees in the world right now. So the sustainability cycle is what was on that chart earlier. That is what is so key, is to find the problem, actually start the problem. Nobody's going to fix it if nobody, A, knows about it, B, articulates it, and C, actually starts. We have to start. Then, using nature-based solutions, we benefit local communities, private industries, local governments, regional communities, similar communities, and the environment itself. And they benefit through water quality, biodiversity, investment attractiveness if the investment area of property and real estate is at a less risk because they have already used nature-based solutions for their area to stabilize real property investments. Workforce and development generates real revenues back into the economy. Infrastructure resiliency creates and maintains a benefit to the tax base. And what I really care about is generating jobs and workforce development in these local communities that can stay in those local communities. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and efforts.
Carter, thank you very much and congratulations on the extraordinary work that you guys are doing. And there's time and time again, we see examples of where funders come in and they think they have the solution and they throw money at that solution and it ends up being the wrong solution. So we were talking about the Georgie Bedell Foundation earlier today in our conversation where corporations come into Burkina Faso and they want to drill wells. Well, the last thing that Burkina Faso needs is new wells, but they need the 10,000 wells that are in disrepair to be repaired. So what does the Georgie Bedell Foundation do? They go out and train women in that community. And as Georgie said, when we train those women as engineers, we know that we'll never have another broken down well that doesn't get fixed immediately. So great example, Carter. So thank you for that. It's now my pleasure to introduce Jyoti Jankowski with Save Soil and Conscious Planet. They have done truly amazing work around the world associated with regenerative ag and sustainable soil. So Jyoti, thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to see you again and looking forward to hearing your comments about the important work that you're doing.
Thank you very much, Doug. And one of the advantages I have after listening to these different organizations and speakers is the integration of all of us. There's so many lines that connect and cross, and the collaboration opportunities here. So thank you so much, Doug, for getting all of us here together where we may not have been on the same stage talking. So this is what's needed. This is what's wonderful about COP. And I don't know how many of you went to COP last year. It was beautiful. It was grand. I am really appreciating this COP because we're all in the small space together in a sense and can run into each other and have these level of conversations. So Doug and I have been working on different scenarios or different opportunities for a while, and we were at New York City for the Climate Week. And again, one of the opportunities we had is to connect different individuals from different areas and backgrounds, ocean, wells, biodiversity, and soil. And one of the things that I like to talk about with soil, how many of you understand the importance of soil? I'm assuming in this crowd, many of us understand the importance of soil. So I don't want to go into too much of that, but just a couple of analogies as you're speaking to others that may not understand the importance of soil is everybody seems to understand the importance of trees, right? Maybe 10, 15 years ago, 2005, for me, it was like Inconvenient Truth, the movie that Al Gore had come out with. That's when all of a sudden I realized how important trees were. I may have appreciated it, but I didn't understand the importance of it. And they're considered to be the lungs of the earth. Well, soil is considered to be, in my mind, the skin of the earth. It is something that gives us nourishment. It's something that gives us the food we all eat. We have not just as human beings, but every living organism is part of this ecosystem. But somebody just pointed out to me, because you've heard me say this before, but not is it only the skin of the earth, it's the stomach of the earth, because it feeds us. But at the same time, it's the biodiversity of the soil that also relates to the biodiversity of our gut and the microbiome of our gut, which is the gut-brain axis as well too. So, this is a very important topic that all of us, because it affects us in so many ways. We listen to these programs, we listen to these individuals, but it relates to each and every one of us, because now the climate world is coming closer and closer. Climate events is affecting all of us. So we all need to pay attention and really think about this. So that's why I'm part of this as well today too, because why soil? It does have an effect. We know about climate change. We know about carbon emissions. We know about air pollution, water scarcity. Many people do not know about the importance of soil. I was talking to a physician and he asked me what I'm doing now. And I was talking, this is a family friend, and asking me what I'm doing. And I told him, and he said to me, he goes, I pay so much attention to food and the nutrition of food when it comes to human health as a physician, but I never connected soil to food. And to me, that was such a huge gap, right? So even though us in this room, us at this conference may understand this, we really need to make sure everybody understands the importance of soil. And that's one of the things that our organization does, is making sure that there's a certain level of awareness that's happening among everybody, among the masses, as well as among policymakers and corporations and physicians and just all these different verticals that we all tend to talk about, but everybody understands it. When people feel soil, right? When how many of you have held soil recently in your hand? Like really good, healthy soil. You can smell it. You can feel it. You can feel the moisture. You can see the earthworms. You can see the healthy soil. Then you go and you hold sand and you can tell the difference. This is what we're talking about. 52% of globally agricultural soils are degraded. So if we think about the importance of this, I think there's a lot on the slides. I'm going to go through these slides fairly quickly. If somebody wants this information, I'm happy to give it to you. But they're saying that by 2050, UN is predicting 90% of our soils are going to be degraded. 90% of our agricultural soils, but 9.2 billion people are going to be on this earth at the time. So this is pointing out that there's a certain urgency this happens. We can't all just come together and regenerate soil. It has its own cycle. So the urgency is now so that 10, 15 years from now, we do have these healthy soils. And they're saying that the number of billions of people that migrate because of soil, right? Because they can't feed themselves. They can't have the agricultural soils, again, pointing out to the importance of all of this. But it's not just that it has the impact on food. There's a financial burden that it places on all of us as well, too. So the global economy will lose $23 trillion by 2050 through land degradation. $1 trillion now we're talking about. So this is the global impact of this, just like Carter was saying with regards to oceans and what's happening with the oceans. This is true on so many fronts, and it's wonderful that we're all here to try to come up with these solutions. So soil, like I said, is the skin of the earth. It has an impact on many aspects: food crisis, water scarcity, biodiversity. 1 teaspoon of soil holds more organisms than there are human beings on this earth. So the biodiversity is very important. Climate change. Many people don't realize, they think about, that yes, people, the farmers get affected by climate events. Absolutely. Many of us do. But they're also part of the solution. And this is also something else that we need to bring awareness to as well, too. If you have healthy soils, you can mitigate one
We don't have audio.
Apologize. Um, so to kind of look at this, the founder that I mentioned was Sadhguru, and he presented a three-pronged strategy at COP15 in UNCCD a couple of years ago. We have another COP16 happening in just a few weeks, and for those of us that are privileged, I'm going to say that with a little sarcasm, we get to go to another COP in a couple of weeks here for 2 weeks as well. But the thing is creating healthy, resilient soils is very important to all of this and how to do this. And this is where I think Ruchi talked about policy. Policies have to be in place to be able to support the longevity of this, to be able to make sure that we can safeguard soil health for the future generation. But it also has to have an opportunity to support the farmers, because the farmers are the ones that are transitioning. They're the ones that are taking the risk here. They're going from wherever they are to what they need to get, and they need that support. When we're talking about that support, it's not just talking about the support as far as like the things that we're talking about, saplings and being able to do this. But there's training is very, very important to this, because there's a mindset shift that needs to happen in these farmers. So making sure that they understand why the advantages for them for this. And then there's carbon credit systems, and then there's also marketing as well. So I think the challenge for all of us is we're doing some really large scale projects and work, and we have 10 minutes to speak about it. But if anyone's interested in this, I'd be happy to talk a little bit more about it as well too. And this is just to show the awareness aspects that I spoke about in the beginning. We do have a huge impact in the awareness aspect as well too, that you can, again, come to our booth or our pavilion and we can talk a little bit more about this. Sorry, I get very passionate about this, Doug.
Oh, not at all. Thank you. You guys are doing incredible work. I'm very much struck by the learning models that you've created. And I think something that all of us should pay attention to, the fact that you've got 40,000 farmers on a WhatsApp group, like that's bridging the chasm between awareness and action.
Yeah, that's only for one initiative. The other initiative, we have another 48,000 in that. So combined, we have about 90,000 to 100,000 farmers on WhatsApp groups.
One other thing that I just wanted to know regarding the importance of the intersectional nature amongst all of the work that you guys are doing. So we as an organization are focused on 6 primary pillars: air, water, soil, biodiversity, human equity, and carbon. These are intersectional. Nature doesn't parse these things out, nor should any of us, right? So we were talking last night around the importance of coastal restoration and protection to protect soils, right? And, avoid salinity in soils. So we've got a major problem coming up regarding feeding the world if we don't address this. So thank you again for the work that you're doing. So I'd like to pass things off to Dr. Mohir Chowdhury, who is here representing ERDA, which is the Environmental Research and Development Alternatives Group. So, Dr. Chowdhury, thank you for being here. Look forward to hearing your comments about the important work that you're pursuing.
Thank you, Moderator. Thank you, Moderator. Thank you, all respectable panelists, distinguished participants. I am Monir Chowdhury. I am from Bangladesh, and I am representing ERDA, Environmental Research and Development Alternatives. This organization mainly working for natural resource management. Here I would like to I'd like to discuss two examples that is very relevant with Rabbani and also Jyoti told about the plantation. If I say about Bangladesh, what we don't need to adaptation. We are facing frequently flood, cyclone, drought. Newly, we are facing huge heat wave every last 2-3 years. So every kind of adaptation is need for Bangladesh. All about this adaptation, I am just presenting here. I am just discussing two practices that we are doing in the rural level with the community people. That is, one is a fruit trees plantation. In Bangladesh, once we have a rich in local native fruits, but nowadays there are many Bangladeshis here. Nowadays we don't have that much. Yeah, maybe that is not completely declined, but rare. Now it is became rare. It is also in my life happened because when I was a young student, we take native fruits from the natural forest and we eat it and also sometimes distribute it to others. Now we are getting rarely that fruits. So our organization take initiative to plant this kind of fruits that are disappearing or declining, rare. So we have taken initiative with the rural women. As Jyoti already mentioned, 90% of their participants are women. Here is 100% women. We engage 100% women. They established nursery, collecting seeds from different locations, even distant places of the country, and they grow their small-scale nursery and distributing to the nearby around 150 families. So that families are growing these native fruits now. And we have taken another method here. We are saying it is MLG, multi-level growth. We using government, local government institutions. We using education institution. We using local clubs, local community, even people volunteer, local volunteer. So in this way, we are growing this local native fruits. And in the meantime, in our working area, it is appreciate, okay, we will get again some local fruits like I would like to spell local name Gab, Dewa, like this. So these are the our first example of plantation of fruit trees, rare species that already very rare in our country. Another one is fish, local fish, native fish. Once we have 360 native freshwater fish species in Bangladesh. Now it is became around 200. In the meantime, 160 disappeared, declined. And among these 200, some of these species already in the endangered position. So we need to adapt, conserve these species. That is why ERDA again taken another initiative to conserve these fish species in our community, engaging community people. Why this happened? This happened actually due to less inundation. As we are the downstream country, we are not getting that much of water flow from the upstream side. This is due to different reasons, also climatic issues. And also unplanned infrastructure developed. All the small scale water bodies disconnected from the network, water flowing network like rivers, canals, and other water bodies locally known as Haor, Baor, and Bil. So that is why these species are declining day by day. So we take an initiative to conserve this through retaining mother fish. Another thing is also those who involved local fishers and community people, those who involved for fishing, we are observing that for agriculture purposes, irrigation is doing. So these sort of small scale ponds, kua, doba are dewatering at least 2-3 times in a year. So all the mother fishes are removing. That is why if there is no mother, how can we get children for the next generation like this? So as the mother are not retaining, that is why the production of these available species also declining. So we are now in the engagement of the community. We are keeping some water bodies leased out or giving, we say maybe 300 taka in Bangladeshi, taka 3,000 taka for one small water body. They are an awareness building among the community. So these ponds taking for the mother fish, retaining for the mother fish for the next year propagation. So and the community involved for gardening, even protecting the people who are catching this fish. And when the season comes, these species are spreading around the area and they hatch the fish. Locally known as snakeheads, I think everybody knows, locally shoal, taki. These are very visual species. When season comes, rain comes, then they hatch, and we can see easily in our in that area the growth of the these fishes. So in the meantime, we found we have evaluated that around 10 times production increased within that area. local area. It's not big area. So in this way, we are expanding vertically around the area. So these are the two things we are doing in our community and fully engaged by the community. Here, one question may be raised: why these people are not catching these fish? We involve them for some of the ponds are confined that are for the culture fish. Mainly in Bangladesh, culturing major carps. So we engaged for those people who naturally catching fish from these open water bodies. They are involved for the pond culture, and they are also they are aware about the these mother fish, retaining mother fish. Then they are not catching these fishes. So in this way, we are conserving both native fruit and our freshwater fishes. And I hope that this fish will be, if we can go nationwide, we need to go for nationwide, even for, I think it is not only for Bangladesh, it is also for the global problem. So we need to conserve these native fruits, native fish species. And finally, I can say, as this is the financial crop, so need to finance for this type of conservation and directly for the community and not for loan, directly grants for the people. Like, thank you.
Dr. Chowdhury, thank you very much. We've got just a couple minutes left, so we're going to try to wrap this up very quickly. I'd like you to think about something that ties back into this notion of bridging this chasm between awareness and action. We always say at the end of these sessions that if we walk out of today's session and the only comment that we get was that was interesting, then we failed. This has to be about action. And we talk about this analogy about being in the shipbuilding business. Like, we are riding on this old ship right now, and we are trying to slow down that sinking of the ship when we're not just building the new ship, but trying to build the bridge to the new ship. And all of these organizations are doing really, really important work to that end. So I would ask all of you to very quickly talk about, over the course of the next 12 months as we approach Brazil COP, what are the things that you would ask all of these people in this room to do with reference to action? Where do you need help? Rushi, let's start with you, and then we'll just pass it down the line.
Overall, last comment will only talk about, there are excellent practices we can already see, but gelling them together, we have so many people already working on the ground, but still we are sitting here. Saving is still a question. Are we saving our environment? We have collectives, but how these collectives doesn't just stay as collectives, but everybody come together. Talking about climate action, talking about forestry, talking about biodiversity, convergence of both, and having a common voice, and not just a voice, implementable actions, which will be difficult to give without proper financing and a financing to these community-led organizations and small systems, which can really share their knowledge and take it to the next level. That will be my last comment. So we need more convergence and upscale of that financing. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Chowdhury.
Yeah, very similar. As we heard for long, 1 billion, now it is, we are saying 1 trillion. I can say locally, people are ready, practicing many adaptation, everything. But due to financial lack, it's not happening all over the area. That is why we, UNFCCC and the nation who actually responsible for financing, they need to come forward to implement these good practices immediately.
Thank you. Jyoti.
I think we can all see there's a lot of good work being done. And a lot of this work has to be done at the local level because for us, for specifically looking at farmer type, farmer, learn from farmer, there's a language barrier, there's mentality, mindset, all these things are there. So a lot of the work has to be done at the local level, but there also has to be a scalability to that. And how do we scale up is I think the thing that we need to think about is what you were saying, Ruchi, too, is how do we globally, maybe nationally, globally scale these projects up and take each other's good learnings and do that. And I think this is where innovation can potentially be something that we can bring into this space as well, too. So like you're doing, Doug, with this New Day Impact, app that you can have on your phone, these types of innovative ways we should be bringing to these solutions so we can have the scalability and therefore have the funding coming into that as well, too.
Agreed. Partnerships. When you think you have enough partners, double it. When you think you have twice as many, double it again. There's not enough funding to go around to have a bunch of small projects with a bunch of small ribbon cuttings that is great for social media, but doesn't impact change. If we want transformational change, that demands partnership from a regional, from a collective community of best management practices. So as much as it is painful at times to have a bunch of people under the same tent, partnerships, partnerships, partnerships.
Thank you, Carter.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I think first of all, I would agree with my former colleague Jyoti, but I have two messages, important messages. All have a nationally determined contribution or national adaptation plan. We must advocate for the nature-based solution. We do not have planet B. We have just one planet, and it has to be green for any reason. I'm sure that the demand for the resources, money, will never be met. We haven't seen this in last 35 years, so it's not going to meet. But what we need to meet is from the domestic finance, and we have to shout for the resources that my colleague Monir Hussain Chowdhury mentioned. And my second point is implementation of NAP or NDC, whatever, we must follow LLA principle. So that is proven. 130 organizations, including development partners, endorse these LLA principles. And BRAC from Bangladesh has endorsed and approved and are monitoring these LLA principles in Bangladesh. So with that, I have to stop here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Golam. I'm going to leave you with one final thought. Paradox today is that most human beings don't think about their small footprints as being instrumental in addressing climate change and nature-based solutions. But it is our responsibility today, as human beings, as neighbors with one another, that every one of us participate. So one final word is that encourage everybody that you know, whether they're big investors or small investors, whether they're capital deployers or just people that want to get involved, to get out and make a difference. Because time is running out, and this is action that we have to take today, and we're responsible for doing it. Thank you so much to our panel for joining us. This has been such a pleasure serving with all of you, and thank you for attending. We should get a